They're not going to foul. The Heat will let it play out. It's over. At last, the long wait is over. After 47 years, the Denver Nuggets can finally call themselves NBA champions.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Basketball in the Mountains. I'm your host, as always, Tyler King. This is episode 72, and we're here to talk all things hoops in the Mountain Time Zone. Got a fun week, a fun month ahead. As we're into the first week of March here, going to be talking mostly NBA on the show today, but this will probably be our last really NBA-centric show for a little bit here, as we've got conference tournaments starting up this weekend with the Big Sky. Probably going to do a really big Big Sky preview for the conference tournament on the episode later this week. Most of you will be listening to this on Wednesday, March 4th, when this comes out. But after that, we've got Big 12, Mountain West the following week. As the regular seasons are wrapping up here. And then we're right into March Madness with a lot of teams in the tournament likely this year. Teams we know for sure that are going to be in the tournament, like Arizona, who I'll talk about at the end of today's show. Plenty of teams in the Big 12, Mountain West as well. And then whoever ends up getting those automatic bids from the Big Sky. We'll see what happens with Utah Valley and the WAC, all that kind of stuff. So we're probably going to have a good number of teams in the tournament once again this year. Unfortunately, no tournament in Denver is not hosting this year, which would have been fun. But we'll see if any of the local teams here end up making it after making some kind of a surprise run in their conference tournaments. But got a lot to get to on today's show, and we're going to start with the Denver Nuggets. And to help us break down what the heck is going on with this team is my colleague over at the Denver Gazette, Vinny Benedetto. Vinny, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I was lucky enough to be in Oklahoma City last Friday, and I'll probably be headed back there next week. So, it's getting to be that time of year where the stakes are a little bit higher. And, you look at this Nuggets schedule, this next 6-game stretch is going to be quite impactful. And there's not really, there's not like a win on there. You're just like, all right, that's an easy dub. So, it feels like that time of year where things are really getting, the stakes are getting higher, and it's going to be an illuminating, next month or so.
Yeah, I've talked on the show for weeks now about how the schedule post All-Star break for the Nuggets is really, really challenging. They have obviously played the Thunder twice now, one time since the All-Star break. You mentioned the game you were at last week where the Nuggets lost in overtime, 127-121. A really fun, crazy, kind of chaotic game with some ejections and some really tempers flaring in ways that we haven't really seen, especially with Nikola Jokic. Really since kind of the Morris incident, I think, against the Heat from a couple years ago. We haven't seen Nikola Jokic get that hot, and I have a feeling that the meme of him with the crazy eyes is going to last for quite a while. But it's kind of what has been your take over the last week or so. Obviously, the Nuggets had a big week with games against Boston at home, which they won. At Oklahoma City, they lost to the Timberwolves on Sunday, and then sneaked one out against the Jazz last night, who are dying to lose every time they take the core. Nuggets were able to kind of sneak one out to go 2-2 in these last 4 games here this past week. Just kind of what's been your take on the little bit of a strange stretch here for the Nuggets, as I think since Nikola Jokic came back, which is a little bit over of a month sample size here, they're now 6-8 in these 14 games. Nikola Jokic's numbers, at least from an on-off perspective, are still really good, but it just doesn't seem eye test wise that Nikola Jokic is the same Nikola Jokic that we were seeing maybe before the start of the new year. I remember just very vividly that Christmas night game against the Timberwolves where it felt like he was kind of stamping himself as the MVP favorite. Now things with the injuries and just all the weirdness that's happened with the team in the last 2 months, everything's kind of changed since then. I'm sure you would agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of at this point, this is probably about as hot takey as I'll get, but I'm almost at the point where I would just hunt the MVP if I'm the Nuggets and start holding them out of these back-to-backs, just because I don't think he's going to be able to make it up the ground that now exists between him and Shea, unless, maybe you give it until next Monday's game in Oklahoma City, and maybe he goes, superhero mode with a stat line we've never seen before.
40+ point triple-double in a big win, yeah.
It's going to take that against the Thunder and, much more sustained success the rest of the way. And, they have an extra back-to-back in there now because they have to make up the Memphis game.
Mm-hmm.
We were just talking about the schedule. They've got Houston at home on the 11th and then at San Antonio on the 12th. Like, I guess
even the back-to-back this week against the Lakers and Knicks at home is not. I mean, the Lakers are kind of struggling, but the Knicks is not an easy opponent, as the Nuggets saw in New York last month.
Yeah, so I'm just like, I think this stretch where the Nuggets have been without a forward has been pretty grueling and pretty demanding, just on both ends because, we saw it last night. Utah kind of copied the OKC defensive playbook with we're going to put smalls on Joker and play physical and try to get under his skin, which, I don't think the Nuggets really have a counter for that just yet. I mean, obviously having Aaron Gordon would help there. And then teams are just plugging up the two-man game and daring, it's really hard for the Nuggets to put a lineup out there that provides the spacing that allows the two-man game to be the two-man game. And then on the other side is not just an absolute sieve defensively.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've got to pick one right now. And I think that's where you miss Aaron Gordon, because Aaron has the gravity at the 3-point line and the presence in the dunker spot to hurt teams in both those ways. And then, obviously the physicality and what he brings defensively is well established. So it's been just like a crazy post All-Star break. Like after that Boston game was their best defensive game of the year.
Yeah.
Don't think it's close. And after that game, this is a stat David Edelman threw out prior to the Oklahoma City game. The first 4 games post All-Star break, the Nuggets had the number one defensive rating. And in the 4 games post All-Star break, they went 2-2 in those games.
Yeah.
It felt like they had found something there. And then now I feel like that has kind of, Keontae George highlighted the the issues they still have defensively. So it's been an interesting last couple of weeks.
Yeah, the defense has stuck out to me kind of all season, and obviously Aaron Gordon is the team's best defensive player. Has been the team's best defensive player since he was originally acquired, back in 2021. So it's just they've really kind of, when Aaron Gordon has been out for these long stretches this season, it feels like they're just kind of punting defensively and just trying to outscore everyone. And it works a decent amount of the time, like we saw last night against Utah, where Jamal Murray is able to go off for 45. Joker has a pretty solid game as well, and they're able to put up 128 points and sneak out a 3-point win. But it feels like that might have to change a little bit this month. And granted, they could get Aaron Gordon back and Peyton Watson back in the next couple of weeks, which I think it seems like they're at least practicing, right? They're at least kind of getting back on the floor, and it feels like they're at least on the verge of coming back.
Yeah, so the last update we got was when Jalen Pickett was kind of out with I think it was just like knee soreness or something. Missed a couple of games. But yeah, Edelman said Jalen, Aaron, and Peyton had been playing like the kind of controlled small side scrimmages against the coaching staff.
Yeah.
Around that same time, he also said, the hope was they get Aaron and Peyton back for the final 20 games of the regular season. Last night was game 62 for the Nuggets. So, I wouldn't be shocked if say they're ready to come back this week. One of them plays Thursday, one of them plays Friday, the other gets the night off. I think that's probably the smart way to handle it, and maybe do that, for back-to-backs the rest of the way, because I am just not interested. I'm not interested in seeing Aaron Gordon play back-to-backs the rest of this regular season. I think what we've seen this season has shown that the only way this team has any chance to do something special, which is the clearly stated goal, is to have him. I don't know if being 100% is realistic, but if he's in the 90s, I think that's gonna kind of what it's gonna take for this team to have a shot.
Yeah, there's 4 back-to-backs left, and they're all in the month of March. I think in April, they don't have any in April. There's a couple. There's one this week. You mentioned the Houston-San Antonio one. There's the Philly home at Memphis one that you said got added, and then you got the at Phoenix home against Dallas one at the end of the month. Just kind of looking at the Nuggets overall defensively, like they're right where they were last year. They were 21st in defense throughout the regular season last year, and they're 21st in defense right now. Like, is it just Aaron Gordon coming back, or are there issues to you that you're seeing that are not just Aaron Gordon based or effort based, that are real issues with this team that have to be solved before the middle of April when the playoffs start? Because it's going to be right now. The Nuggets are, I think they're in fifth. They've dropped down to fifth in the West. They are tied with the Lakers in the loss column. Now the Nuggets are obviously a game up because they have 2 games in hand, or not. The Lakers have 2 games in hand, but the Nuggets have won both of those games. And they're only a game out of third place, but it's going to be a battle. Even if you're the 3 seed, like, it's going to most likely going to be not the easiest first round series. So a lot's got to get fixed between now and April. And I'm just curious what you think about how that happens, or if it is just Aaron Gordon and some better effort.
I mean, I think that's going to have to be most of it. And it's hard to really say, just because it feels like the first 10 games of the season were the only time they were like really healthy.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to like put your thumb on something and say, hey, this is something that Jared Dudley has done, wildly different than what we had seen in previous seasons. And I think there's just kind of a point. It starts with Aaron Gordon, but then like also not having Peyton Watson and Spencer Jones, like,
those are the better perimeter defenders on the team. Like, people calling Peyton Watson a 4 at this point that's just not who he is at this point. Like, he hasn't really ever been a guy who defends 4s at a high level, and just kind of with what he's done offensively this year, Peyton is not really the plus defender people kind of view him as. But yeah, it's just kind of this as soon as Aaron Gordon goes out, there's nothing at the 4 for this group, really.
Yeah, nothing. And then like Spencer Jones can probably do some stuff there. Or it might be your next best option, but it's just like, if a football team loses the left side of its offensive line, it's just, and then you're pulling up guys from the scout team or whatever and plugging them in. It's just like, and you start giving up sacks. It's just like, all right, well, this is kind of just what it's going to be until they get right. And then I feel like, I don't feel like Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic's like effort levels on the defensive end have been where they needed to be. And there have been like bright spots for a game or two, but consistently they just haven't been able to maintain it. So for me, I guess I'm kind of at the point where I'd throw it back to what we saw from David Edelman in the group last playoffs, where they just rely much more heavily on zone defense and just kind of, and they've shown a little bit of that recently, but it's just you go up against some of these teams right now, and I just don't have a lot of confidence that they can do it, straight up guarding a man. I do think Christian Brown he's done a fairly decent job against, Ant and Shea in the last couple, last handful of games. I'm not saying he's like completely turned their water off, but like done a good enough job to give the team a chance to win, which is, I think, all you can really ask for against those guys. So yeah, I mean, I think it starts with health, and then it's got to come from effort, and then beyond that, I just don't think we've really been able to see like Jared Dudley do what he wants to do with this defense.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Like you said, they have not been fully healthy since like the end of November, when Christian Brown first went down with his ankle injury, and then Aaron Gordon's first hamstring injury, quickly followed after that, and just it's kind of been wave after wave of one starter being out. And now Cam Johnson's dealing with the ankle injury again, which kind of segues into what I wanted to talk about next with Cam and the confidence issue that is kind of coming to a boiling point after just months of whether it's not being able to be on the floor with Cam, having a weird injury season, and just not having nearly kind of the production that the Nuggets expected, he expected, or fans expected. Just kind of, what do you make of where Cam is at this point, and how can the Nuggets salvage this season for him individually? Because it feels like if they're going to make any kind of deep playoff run, like it's nice that Peyton Watson has had this emergence this season where it basically gives them a 6th starter. And obviously Tim Hardaway Jr. is a really, really high caliber bench player that can play a lot of minutes, as he's shown throughout the regular season. But it feels like the best version of the Nuggets that goes on to win the championship, which I predicted before the season, features Cam Johnson at least contributing a little bit more than he has this season. Just kind of, what have you made about Cam's season as a whole, and how he can kind of get out of this in the next 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah, it just feels like it's been like a season from hell for Cam. And, I obviously didn't know him at all before this season, but I don't know if I've seen like a more frustrated guy than our little interview with Cam in the post-game locker room Sunday.
Yeah.
He's just
that was really illuminating into kind of how he's feeling right now.
Yeah, and like credit to him for talking to us, because when you leave a game with an injury, I think sometimes guys try to get out of doing media. So I appreciate Cam for sharing. It's just been, so I think start of the season he was trying to figure out where his shots were going to come from, what he how he fit into this offense without trying to do too much or trying to do too little. Gets going, late November into mid-December, bone bruise happens, that presses pause on everything. And then it just came back with another solid stretch, another injury. And apparently, this ankle thing is something he said that he's dealt with throughout his career. And it sounds like it's just flaring up right now. So I think the hope is, I don't know if he'll be right by Thursday. But it also just feels like giving him a week to just zoom out and collect himself and get himself to where he's in a better headspace might be beneficial for the long run. Because I think, to your point, he is a massive part of this team. And I think, especially kind of in that second unit, we see when they've both been healthy, Cam and Jonas Valanciunas have stayed after practice together and just kind of played 2-on-2 against coaches, trying to develop DHO game or pick and roll kind of stuff. And I think, that's going to be an important part of Denver's second unit in the playoffs. So it is weird kind of how all of the issues parallel with Michael Porter Jr.'s issues in terms of sometimes when you're in the starting lineup, we just need you to stand in the corner and be a spacing threat and knock down the shot. And I think it's much harder than a lot of people realize.
Oh yeah.
To be put in the corner and say, hey, you might be on the court for 6-7 minutes of basketball time and only get 1 or 2 shots. But the expectation is you go in and you hit that shot, or you're ready to knock down that shot when your time comes. And then obviously, Mike kind of had the same thing with the second unit where he had more responsibility, more offensive freedom. So I think it is a harder role than a lot of people kind of give it credit for. So yeah, I think, Cam just probably needs a week to take a breath, regain some confidence, see some shots go down in the practice gym, get that ankle right, and see what he can do.
You bring up a great point with him and Valanciunas as kind of the heads maybe of the second unit. And that's something even dating back to November when I was coming to games, just kind of watching that was always so intriguing for me, because part of the appeal of a guy like Cam was because you felt like now Mike has done a good job showcasing what he can do with a lot more on-ball reps this season in Brooklyn. But part of the appeal about Cam was that you really trusted him kind of right away to be a guy that you could put the ball in his hands, and he could be a guy that could run the second unit and could kind of take that maybe off Jamal Murray's plate in the regular season, which has kind of been his responsibility for the large portion of this decade, has been Jamal running the second unit. And I think that's something I want to ask about next, is just the struggles of the bench in general during this stretch. Because if you look at the advanced stats, all of the guys that are struggling in terms of net rating are all of the bench guys. Like Jonas Valanciunas is last on terms of the rotation guys over this stretch here of these 14 games where the Nuggets are 6-8 with Joker back in the lineup. Valanciunas is last at minus 8.6. Jalen Pickett minus 7.1, and then there's Cam Johnson, Bruce Brown, who are in the negatives, and Tim Hardaway Jr. is hovering right around a net zero for his net rating. So that was kind of the reason I was so hopeful about this Nuggets team, or had such high expectations about them, is because I felt like this was the best the second unit was going to be in a while, or maybe during the entire Jokic era, because of the Valanciunas additions, Hardaway Jr., Cam Johnson maybe running that, and some emergence some other young guys. But it just feels like that unit is really lost its footing, and maybe that's just with it, guys coming in and out and kind of not knowing who that second unit is going to be on every night. But how important is it for you for this second unit to get back to where it was maybe in November and even early December when it was playing well for this team in terms of its ceiling going forward, not just in the regular season, obviously, but in the postseason as well?
Yeah, I think it's got to be up there. And, that's kind of been the one thing that is, how do I put this? David Adelman, it took it to a new level in the last couple of games in terms of like being openly critical of the second unit's performance, and called it unacceptable or inexcusable. And it's just like,
it's been these early fourth quarter stretches have been like, it's back to like peak bad, like non-Jokic minutes era, which hadn't been the case for the much of the season. But like you said, these last couple of games, it feels like they're just getting destroyed at the starts of fourth quarters when they're either trying to stay in a game or have a lead and it just quickly goes away.
Yeah. And I mean, like that Oklahoma City game was like, oh, that first quarter was like, felt like it was real and the Nuggets had found something. And then it was a 9-0 run to erase the lead completely in like 2 minutes and 8 seconds.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think they're going to have to figure out something for Oklahoma City at some point, just because the 2 games so far, I don't know if we've seen anything that indicates that like that's a matchup that Jonas is going to be, a real contributor in, or he's going to have to like do a lot offensively to negate some of the defensive stuff, because Arkansas Jalen Williams just feels like he's been able to be a thorn in Denver's side with his ability to kind of knock down the 3-point shot and battle on the defensive end. So yeah, I mean, as with everything, getting healthy would go a long way. But I do think David Adelman is right in wanting to maximize Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic's minutes together. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably the best path forward for this team but you need somebody to be able to create something offensively with that second unit. And too many times in the last couple of weeks, you look at who's out there on the court and you're just like, so where exactly is the offense going to come from if it's not one of the like Tim Hardaway Jr. heaters where he hits 3 threes in like a minute and 10 seconds and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that works. You can't bank on that being the case every night. Bruce Brown is starting to shoot it a little bit better, but it still feels like the most reliable aspect of his offense is going to be generated by the defense or getting out in transition. And it just doesn't feel like they're doing enough defensively to give Bruce those kind of opportunities. Jonas has been whatever he's been offensively, like it's, hits a bucket or two, but it's not like he's given them like a real strong offensive identity in that group. So, I guess you hope for health and some Tim Hardaway Jr. heaters at this point.
I was going to say maybe the answer to that is just trying to bottle whatever that January stretch was for Peyton Watson, bottle that into him doing that with the second unit going forward, because we talked about this last time I had you on, was the most encouraging thing about Peyton's development this year was the on-ball stuff and the mid-range stuff that, like, you have to earn those shots. And the fact that the Nuggets, now granted they were really depleted at that time, but the fact that they were they trusted him enough to take those shots, and he was hitting them at really good rates, and his form looks really, really good, not just from three, but some of the like I said, the off the dribble stuff in the mid-range, that was just like, you never really expected that to come for a guy like Peyton, who was kind of always billed as like a 3-and-D guy. Do you feel like that just kind of bottling whatever Peyton has shown, at times this season, bottling that up and having him try to do that with the second unit, could that be the solve the second unit is kind of missing if Cam Johnson is just never going to develop into the second unit point guard or kind of offensive hub that they were hoping for?
Yeah, and I guess, that does feel like their best bet right now. And I guess what Peyton was doing was really impressive. But I should probably go back and watch this and just try and get a feel for like how much of it was Peyton just kind of like operating isolation kind of stuff, or like taking his man one-on-one and getting to a spot and hitting a step back 15
felt like it was a lot of that, but yeah,
in terms of like, I don't know how much of it was coming off 2-man game with Jonas or really running an offense. But at this point, like with that group, points are points, and however you feel like the best bet, putting the ball in the basket is probably the way you got to go. And to your point, it feels like putting the ball in Peyton's hands is probably their best bet as soon as he gets right.
Last thing before I get you out of here, Vinny, is just I had Matt Moore on the show a couple weeks ago talking about just the importance of the seeding, just kind of where are you at with the standings aspect of where the Nuggets are right now. Like I mentioned, they're fifth, a game out of third, a game up on sixth. They're 3 games up on Phoenix, who I haven't really talked about a ton just because with the injuries that they're dealing with. I don't really feel like they're a threat to really go anywhere outside of that 7. I think Phoenix kind of locked in the 7th spot. And it feels like the top 6 is going to be the top 6. Like, is it more matchup to you, or do you really feel like either it's 3 or 6, or because I don't think anybody's catching San Antonio either. They're 5 games up on Houston for the 2nd spot. But is it 3 or like you just want to avoid Oklahoma City altogether in the 2nd round? Like, how are you kind of viewing what the Nuggets should be thinking over these next 5-6 weeks here to close the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, initially my thought was avoid Oklahoma City in the 2nd round by any means necessary. But now it feels like they're putting themselves in a position where their path to the finals very well may be Minnesota in the 1st round, San Antonio in the 2nd round, and then Oklahoma City.
That sounds awful. And no home court in either of those series, by the way.
I mean, I think they could get Minnesota because they've already got the season tiebreaker.
Right now they wouldn't. Yeah.
So I think that would be huge. I mean, even though they won 3 games against Minnesota this season, that Christmas Day game felt a little fluky in terms of like Minnesota was up 8 in overtime. So you flip that one and it's a 2-2 season series. I can't remember if Ant was healthy for both of the first 2 games, but regardless, if you're the Nuggets and you're potentially staring down that path of Minnesota, San Antonio, and Oklahoma City, I put their percentages of making it through that stretch at like single digits, like low single digits.
Yeah, no one wants to play them more than Minnesota. San Antonio, that athleticism at the guards seems like it's going to be really, really tough to deal with in the postseason, and the Thunder are the Thunder. So, I mean, it may just be let's try to get Houston or the Lakers in the 1st round at all costs kind of thing.
Yeah, and at this point, it'd be hard to blame them. So, yeah, if you could, I would have to do more deep dive on this. If there's a way you can line it up and you get Houston or LA in the 1st round and you're on the other side of the bracket as the Thunder, that's probably got to be your best
You're
bet.
likely going to have to play San Antonio in the 2nd round regardless, because I think they would be pretty heavy favorites over whoever it is that gets the 7 seed, whether that's Phoenix or if the Clippers can kind of make a run here. I think they would be interesting as a matchup for San Antonio. But yeah, you're most likely playing San Antonio in the 2nd round if you get past the 1st round.
Yeah, and then the hope there is, the Nuggets have the experience, the Spurs. Kind of, I mean, it's like the Thunder a few years ago. It's like everything on paper makes sense. Do you really have the postseason experience of playing with expectations and playing as the favorite? And what happens when the game slows down and it's more physical? Experience does matter in those spots. So yeah, if you're the Nuggets and you can manipulate things so that you get Los Angeles in the 1st round, San Antonio in the 2nd, and then you pray to whatever God you believe in that someone else takes care of the Thunder. I think that's probably about the only way they get back to the finals this year.
All right, man. I appreciate you hopping on, taking time out of your busy schedule. Hopefully we'll see you in OKC next week. Continue your great coverage of the Nuggets as they navigate this interesting stretch, because it's going to be a fun month, even though March is often referred to as Mickey Mouse March with some of the fluky stuff that goes on across the NBA. I think there's a lot that Nuggets fans are hoping is not fluky if they're able to turn around here in March. It'll be certainly fun to watch, and you'll be all over it. So I appreciate you hopping on today.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks again to my colleague from the Denver Gazette, Vinny Benedetto, for hopping on to today's episode to talk all things Denver Nuggets. Before I get out of here today, just want to hit on some college hoops topics here. Recording this late Tuesday night, so there are some games still going on as I'm recording this, but Monday night, Arizona clinches the Big 12 on the first day of the last week of the regular season. An impressive 73-57 win over number 6 Iowa State. Arizona 28-2, 15-2 in the Big 12. Like I said, already clinches outright Big 12 regular season championship. They play at Colorado on Saturday, a game I will be at. Actually, it's a 9 p.m. Mountain Time tip-off, which is not ideal for me, but, hopefully people are tuning in. But that makes it 5 straight wins for the Wildcats after that very brief 2-game losing streak, which was at Allen Fieldhouse, and then at home against Texas Tech. They've rattled off wins against BYU at home, at number 2 Houston, maybe their best win of the season, at Baylor, home against Kansas, home against Iowa State. This team's awesome. Number 1 team in the country, in my opinion. Well, maybe Duke is, but I don't know. Arizona is clear. I think there's a clear group of 4 teams at the top. You can look at KenPom and see who they are. It's Arizona, it's Duke, it's Michigan, and it's Florida. I think all 4 of those teams could win the national championship. I'm most likely going to pick, when brackets come out in less than 2 weeks now, I'm most likely going to pick one of those 4 teams to win the national championship. Maybe it's Arizona. This team fully deserves it. They are just awesome. Wasn't even like, yes, it was an impressive win, but it wasn't like, super standout performance from anybody. Cool to see Jaden Bradley lead the team with 17 points. He also had 4 made a bunch of free throws. He led the team on senior night. Mo Krivas had a big game, a solid game as well, 13 points. The Braden Burry's co-Pete only come out for 15 points. Tobe Awaka had 10 points and 15 rebounds off the bench, as he continues to be one of the better bench players in the country. So shout out to Arizona. I'm going to be honest, I did not pick them to win the Big 12 before the season. I had them in my top. I had them 4th. I think that's where they ended up in the media poll. I had Houston repeating, and I had Iowa State and Texas Tech both ahead of Arizona. Completely proved me wrong. Tommy Lloyd going all in on this freshman class with Burries and Pete and Karchenkov, who's just been awesome in the month of February, particularly as a defender. Krivas has come back with a bang, one of the better defensive players in the country, and Jaden Bradley has been one of the better, senior leader point guards you could ask for. So, and this team's obviously got great depth too with Del Orso, Awaka, Aristode when he's been healthy. Like that top 8, I think, is the reason why Arizona could win the national championship. So shout out to them. They fully took it to Iowa State. It's had a little bit of a weird kind of end to the season here, even though they're 24-6 and still a top 10 team. But the other thing I wanted to mention before getting out of here today was Carson Johnson here in Denver, University of Denver, Pio sophomore guard, was named Summit League Player of the Year and Newcomer of the Year because he's in his first year after transferring from Division II Minnesota State Moorhead. Pretty crazy story for this kid, who's really nice kid. Got to talk to him a little bit today. You can check out actually a story over on DenverGazette.com on Carson winning Summit League Player of the Year. Just the second DU player in the modern Division I era, which starts in 1998, the year I was born, ironically. So the last 27 years. He's just the second player to win, DU player to win a Conference Player of the Year award. The last one was in 2004-05, back when DU was in the Sun Belt. So first ever Summit League Player of the Year for the Piles. And Carson Johnson, totally deserving. I think he averaged 22.5 points per game in Summit League play. It was like over 3 points better than the next closest person. Averaged over 20 points per game when you include the whole season. So just an awesome kid. And I said he's a sophomore, so he's going to be around this program as they go to the WCC next year. It's a great building block for Tim Bergstresser to build around. So just wanted to give him a shout out because he's had a great season. DU went 8-8 in Summit League play, first 500 or better record in conference play since 2017-18, I believe. They head to the Summit League tournament, which begins later this week in Sioux Falls. They are the number 6 seed. They'll play number 3 North Dakota on Friday in the quarterfinals, and it's a team they've beaten in North Dakota earlier this season. So Pioneers, even though they are the 6th seed, I think they're going to Sioux Falls, with a lot of confidence. They've beaten a lot of the almost all the top teams, I think, in the Summit League at this point. They've been in a lot of close games, so they know what it's like. This coaching staff and the 4 players that came with Bergstresser from MSU Moorhead last year, they won their conference tournament at the D2 level, so they know what it takes to win a couple games in a row in a span of a couple days there. So we'll see what DU can, if they can. It'd be pretty crazy, but if they're cutting down the nets on Sunday and clinching their first ever trip to the NCAA tournament, that would be a pretty special story. But pretty special season in and of itself already for DU, who, like I said, Carson Johnson, Summit League Player of the Year, so shout out to him. And before we get out of here, it looks like Arizona State's going to get a big win at home over Kansas. They're up by 13 in the final minute of that game. Colorado also got a big win today on the road, just their second true open of the season, and their first since the Big 12 opener at Arizona State in early January. Buffs held off Utah 92-78 in Salt Lake City. Buffs are 7-10. In the Big 12. Nice close of the season for them. Like I said, I'll be at their game against Arizona on Saturday night. Shout out Boise State as well. They got a big win over San Diego State today to move to 11-8 in Mountain West. I'll see Boise State in action on Saturday as well. Going to be a long Saturday for me. I'll be at CSU Boise at 2 o'clock in Fort Collins. And then after that, I'll be heading back down to Boulder for CU Arizona at 9 o'clock. And Grand Canyon also won tonight. They beat Air Force at the Academy. No surprise there. Wyoming's up big right now in Nevada. They had a big first half. They've got a big, nice double-digit point lead there. There'll be a nice win for Sundance Wicks and the Pokes. So I just want to give a couple of quick college hoops takeaways before getting out of here today, because like I said, it's probably going to be the last NBA centric episode for a little bit here, at least, until, we get to the end of March and early April as the NBA regular season winds down and the playoffs get closer. We'll be back to talk if there's any kind of big news with the Jazz, Suns, and Nuggets as well. Obviously, I'll be at some Nuggets games later this month to kind of see them in action as I'm dealing with the end of the college season here. But thanks everybody for listening to today's episode. Make sure to subscribe wherever you are listening, whether it's on Apple or Spotify. Make sure to leave those 5-star reviews as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you never miss an episode. You'll get notifications when I post all of them. If you are subscribed and you have the notifications turned on, make sure to leave likes on all the videos, leave a comment. Let me know who you guys want to hear about as we get into March Madness here. Best time of the year, in my opinion. Like I said, we're going to probably do an episode previewing the Big Sky tournament later this week, with that getting underway in Boise this weekend. Looking forward to all of that. So thanks again to all of you for listening. Thanks again to Vinny Benedetto for joining us on today's episode, and enjoy the week of basketball.